Okay, we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday, designing the dragsters. Here again is the truck that we've been using as a demo for our project. Yesterday we looked at several things. We created the hole down the length of the body. We created the two axle holes and the outside shape or outside profile. Today what I want to do is just a reminder on how to edit things that you've already done, and then we'll also look at how to suppress a extrusion so that you can create a new sketch, and then we'll create sketches for the top and the front. So first thing, I'm going to talk about how you can edit things that have already been created. If you're working on Extrusion 4, if you notice it highlights when I go over here in my browser and move my mouse over Extrusion 4, it highlights on my screen. On that extrusion, if I right click, I'll have several options. One of those is I can come in here and edit the sketch that I used, and I can also edit the feature. Editing the feature would allow me to change the details of when I cut this out. For example, if I accidentally added material instead of cutting it, I could change that here in this menu. If I go here and right click and choose Edit Sketch, it'll bring me back to the window where I created this vehicle. Editing that sketch might allow me to change the placement or the dimensioning of some things. For example, we could edit this arc. Currently this arc has a radius of 2.7. If I want a little bit more curve, I might experiment with some different values there. You notice that that has changed both the arc, and it's also changed the location of this back window in relation to the back of the truck. Seeing that, I might undo that edit and leave it as is. Maybe I want to make the bed of this truck taller than it is. I might go in here and edit this dimension. Maybe we'll lift that up to 1 inch. You notice that changes the features. It changes the bumper back here. Okay, when you're editing a sketch, if it's a sketch that you've used to create an extrusion, one thing that's important is that you don't draw any new lines or erase any lines. You simply edit the dimensions of those lines. If you do, when you finish the sketch, you'll notice that it automatically adjusts to your new sizes. Okay, some reminders on editing. Next, we're going to look at how to create what we would call the top view. To do that, we're going to actually have to turn off this last extrusion. We're going to go here, and we're going to choose Suppress Features. All it does is turn them off. We can always come back here later, right-click, and unsuppress. But it brings us back to this top view. If you notice here, we see a preview of what we had. We can go back here and we can edit, or we can create a new top view sketch. We're going to start a 2D sketch on this top view. It's going to rotate down. And now something that we want to think about is we're creating the top of the truck. Now, this probably is a fairly simple sketch. We're going to start with a project geometry so we can see the outside edges. And then inside that project geometry, we're going to create a few features. I'm going to add some curves to the front of my truck. As I move up and down here, let's restart that. Maybe we'll make that a little closer to the corner. Just a little bit of a curve here at the front. Dimensioning that, we're going to make that a 0.3 radius curve. Let's try 0.5. Okay, now that's not working, is it? So let's take a step back and do a few other things. Along the bed of this truck, for example, if we wanted to create a slightly narrowed section throughout the bed of this truck, we might create a few rectangles. One thing we probably would want to do is dimension those rectangles to be equal width. Now here you notice I didn't change that dimension, I just simply created it, accepted it. Down here when I create this dimension, I'll select the first, and that'll match the two dimensions, create an equal cut into both sides of this. Now, I'm going to hold my mouse. Oh, it's not showing up. Alright, let's finish that sketch to see how this looks. Okay. If I notice here looking at it, it's coming a bit farther over in front of the bed of the truck. So I'm going to unsuppress that feature for a little bit. I'm going to click and accept. Now you notice I can see both this and the new sketch. So we're going to go back to this sketch and we're going to edit it. Now, right here, this line and these lines aren't in the same place. To do that, I'm going to do a couple steps. I'm going to first project this line up onto my current sketch. there. And then I'm going to use a constraint here, collinear. Collinear will allow me to identify that my green line, my yellow line should exist in the same place. What that'll do is it'll create my little narrowed bed section lined up with the back of the truck. Okay, having done that, I could come in here and extrude those two squares. Having a little trouble selecting it there. There's one, and let's see if we can't select the other one. Notice that the shading is very kind of hard to see on some of those. And we're going to cut that all the way through. Alright, now at this point this is starting to look a little bit ridiculous. But the point is you can go in here, you can suppress a sketch, you can add a new sketch to the original block. Come back later and unsuppress that sketch. Alright, one other thing I might do to this truck is I might add a fillet, which is a rounded surface here, just to blend all of that together. So we'll add a few fillets here to help smooth out the shape of this truck. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that helps it a little bit. Okay, you could continue to experiment with suppressing sketches and cutting away from different angles, but at this point, if you have the main profile of your vehicle, you've added your top view and of course your side view and your holes, you're probably done with the car. One of our next demos is going to talk about two other parts we need to make, and that is the axle and the wheel.